Chapter 226, Bone-Flesh Unity. Looks like the sculpture of either a lion or a tiger's skull. Isn't this the rumored mechanism which needs two people to cooperate? A thought flashed in Fang Yuan's mind. There are words carved in this sculpture's fangs. Bai Ningbing made a new discovery. She then began to read the carvings in a low voice. Gemini with one mind, three spirits unite. Fated or not, do not be forceful. What does this mean? This is the code to opening the mechanism in this place. Gemini means two people should work together to open the mechanism. Three souls indicate a person's mind, palm and eye. Fang Yuan recalled from his memories. Among the four limbs of a human, palm was most nimble. Among the five organs, the quickest was the eyes, and human's mind could think as fast as a lightning spark. Hence, they were called three spirits. Come. Put your palm on the pupils of the sculpture. There was a translucent, pure red gem in the eyes of the skull sculpture. The red stone was as big as large porcelain bowls, and it clearly reflected the figures of Fang Yuan and Bai Ningbing. However, there was no change at all even after putting their palms on the red gem pupils for a long time. Haha. Your words make sense, but it turned out to be wrong. Bai Ningbing didn't let go of any chance to snide at Fang Yuan. Fang Yuan's expression turned dark. Bai Hua had recounted and described about this mechanism according to his previous life's memories. Logically, this should be the correct procedure. But why was there no change? One-minded Gemini, three souls united. Fang Yuan muttered, three souls united has been achieved, but one mind, one mind. A bright light slowly appeared in his eyes as he continued his thoughts. Is it saying the two people to open this mechanism must be of one mind and one heart? If it is so, even if he and Bai Ningbing were working together, they were only forced by the situation and were actually divided in hearts, with each having their own plans. No wonder they couldn't achieve the one mind. When he thought of this, Fang Yuan couldn't help looking at Bai Sheng and Bai Hua again. As a result, this pair of brother and sister was again kicked awake by Fang Yuan. Evil thieves, what do you want? Bai Sheng angrily shouted after having woken. Bai Hua, however, didn't cry anymore. Her two big eyes were closely gazing at Fang and Bai with deep hatred. Fang Yuan couldn't be bothered to explain to them. He directly grabbed the palms of the two and placed them separately on the pair of red gem pupils. They were truly the inheritors decided by the fate. The moment these two small hands touched the red gem, it let out a bright light. Crack, crack. The skull slowly opened its mouth and revealed a large pile of coalstones and drywoods. In the center of the black coalstones was a simple-looking pottery container and a scroll light on it. What is this? Fang Yuan casually threw the twins onto the ground, then picked up and read the scroll before coming to an understanding. It turns out the owner of this inheritance, gray-bone scholar, didn't have a high aptitude. Thus he was distressed about his cultivation throughout his life. All his life, he put all his efforts into researching a type of goo that could help a goo master to quickly cultivate. There were already plenty of cultivation-assisting goo worms, the most typical being the liquor worm. However, these goo worms were mostly very rare and would be very difficult to popularize. Gray-bone scholar's aspiration was big. He wanted to research and refine an excellent goo worm that could be widely used. However, even when his lifespan was at its end, even after countless failures, he wasn't able to achieve success. At the final juncture of his life, maybe heaven took pity on him. When he was setting up the White Bone Mountain inheritance, he suddenly had an extremely ingenious enlightenment. What was the main method to quickly raise a goo master's cultivation without the help of the specific goo worms? It was to let an elder impart his primeval essence. Previously at Qingmao Mountain, Gu Chi-chung had received such help, receiving the refined primeval essence from his grandfather Gu Chi-lian. However, this move had a big disadvantage. It was the mixture of different primeval essence, relying on an elder's higher-ranked primeval essence to wash and refine the aperture walls would leave behind his aura in the aperture, causing a goo master's future development to be greatly restricted, unless one used cleansing water goo to cleanse the mixed aura. However, cleansing water goo was also a rare goo, and ordinary goo masters would find it difficult to obtain it. Even elder-level characters would have to rely on luck or pay a tremendous price. Thus, imparting method also couldn't be widespread. Hence, Gray-Bone Scholar thought of a wonderful concept. If there was a goo which could refine others' primeval essence into the goo master's primeval essence, wouldn't that mean there would be no mixed aura after imparting? He began making series of attempts, and after removing most of the possibilities, he made a plan which had the highest probability of success. The Name of this experiment was Bone-Flesh Unity Goo. This was what was written in the scroll. To refine this goo, two goo masters must work together. And these two goo masters must have blood relation, parents and children or twins. Relying on the connection of the blood lineage could one transform the primeval essence. However, Grey Bone Scholar didn't have enough time to put this concept into practice. After having made most of the preparations, he could only helplessly stop at the final juncture. Although he had two nicknames, he, however, was only one person. What he lacked were two goo masters who fulfilled the criterias. The final content on the scroll clearly revealed Grey Bone Scholar's endless regret. He did not have enough time to redo the preparations and could only leave behind this blueprint. If someone fated was to arrive to this point and could open the mechanism and see this scroll, that would mean the goo masters who met the conditions had appeared. There is no harm in trying it, no matter what the result. Please convey it to my gravestone. These words in the scroll contained a lifetime of obsession of Grey Bone Scholar. It turned out this pyramid Fang Yuan was stepping on was the tomb of Grey Bone Scholar. There was no need to try though. Fang Yuan already knew the idea of bone-flesh unity goo was a success. Because in his previous life, Bai Sheng and Bai Hua, relying on this dual cultivation, had become the twin stars of righteous path, pushing the might of Bai clan towards the peak with their rank 5 cultivation. However, it was quite troublesome for Fang Yuan now. He had originally thought bone-flesh unity goo was a finished product, but in fact, it had still not been refined into existence yet and couldn't even be considered half-finished. Moreover, he and Bai Ningbing didn't fulfill the conditions to refine this bone-flesh unity goo. Unless Gu Fangzheng had been here. Even then, refining this bone-flesh unity goo might not end up good. According to the description on the scroll, bone-flesh unity goo was a series of goo and didn't refer to just one type of goo. And the deeper the feelings between the two goo masters refining this goo, the better the quality of the refined bone-flesh unity goo. Looking at the relation between Fang Yuan and Fangzheng, the refined bone-flesh unity goo would absolutely not be perfect. In Fang Yuan's previous life, this bone-flesh unity goo had of course been refined by Bai Sheng and Bai Hua. However, the time was now many years in advance, although the two had deep feelings, but they were yet to become goo masters and thus couldn't fulfill the criteria. Bone-flesh unity goo was the most important target of Fang Yuan in this inheritance. The materials in the forge were already well prepared by Grey Bone Scholar. The only thing lacking was the final step, refinement. Give up? Fang Yuan, of course, wasn't willing to. Then again, to refine it, let's not speak of the refinement conditions not being met. There was still a group of powerful experts chasing them. Time was pressing. Fang Yuan gritted his teeth and decided to take the risk. He and Bai Ningbing only met half the criteria, but Bai Sheng and Bai Hua, however, met the other half. Maybe there was a hope for success if the four worked together. Come, help out. Fang Yuan began to ignite the drywoods in the skull sculpture. The fire instantly soared and burned furiously. You plan to forcibly refine it? Bai Ningbing was shocked. This can't be a sensible option. Although she said so, she still made her move and put her palm on the red gem pupil, pouring her primeval essence into it. The blazing fire suddenly changed color, from orange to eerie blue. The pottery container was roasted by the fire. The several hibernating goo worms woke up from the heat and began to crazily struggle. The pottery container shook constantly, but there was no damage to it. The refining steps wasn't complicated. Fang Yuan and Bai Ningbing alternatively poured their primeval essence. Soon, they reached the final critical juncture. This step needed fresh flesh from the two goo masters, which would be thrown into the fire to be purified. The scroll clearly stated that the more flesh was thrown into the fire, the better the effects would be. Fortunately, we have flesh bone goo. Cutting off few pieces of flesh wouldn't be any problem. Bai Ningbing was just about to take action when she was stopped by Fang Yuan. Slow down, I have a better idea. Bai Ningbing followed Fang Yuan's line of sight to Bai Sheng and Bai Hua, the twins. You actually want to tamper with the modify at this juncture? A disturbed gaze flashed in Bai Ningbing's eyes as she realized Fang Yuan's intention. What do you want? Bai Sheng protected his sister behind him, as all of a sudden, he felt a calamity looming over them, causing him to feel anxious and panicky, being meat or fish on another's chopping board, when Fang and Bai were refining the goo worms. They knew they couldn't run away, thus they had been obediently staying to the side, waiting for their clansmen to come to rescue. However now, Bai Sheng felt tremendous regret. You should feel honored that your sacrifices will bring into existence an entirely new type of goo worm. Even Senior Grey Bone would feel happy if he knew in the netherworld, right? Fang Yuan gave an evil grin as he pressed on towards the pair of brother and sister. Sister, run away. Bai Sheng shouted before charging towards Fang Yuan and grasping his leg. Big brother. Tears spilled out from Bai Hua's eyes, and just when she was hesitating, Fang Yuan had already knocked Bai Sheng unconscious. Seeing Fang Yuan coming closer to her, an enormous fear was spreading at the little girl's heart. She turned around and ran. But how could she be faster than Fang Yuan? She was quickly caught by Fang Yuan. Her heart sank down, and she futilely struggled and wailed, "Mother, where are you?" Fang Yuan's expression was indifferent as he knocked her unconscious. It was all done efficiently. He removed all the clothes from this pair of brother and sister, then carrying one on each hand, he threw them into the fire. The moment they were thrown into the fire, they immediately woke up due to the heat. Severe pain attacked them as they tried to madly flee. The two jumped out from the fire with their limbs crazily moving about as they desperately struggled. Fang Yuan coldly snorted. Before kicking them back into the fire, the scroll stated that it required fresh flesh, thus Fang Yuan didn't want to kick them to death. As such, after he kicked them, they again ran out before he kicked them back in again. This continued over and over, until Bai Sheng and Bai Hua were finally burned to death. Their bodies resembled candles as they slowly melted. The fire turned from eerie blue to scarlet blood color. However, the fire transformation slowed down and didn't change to reddish purple. The scroll had stated, the color of the fire had to change into reddish purple for this step to be considered a success. What to do? Bai Ningbing's brows were furrowed. The Gu Masters would also receive backlash if the Gu refinement failed. Fang Yuan's mind worked at turbo speed. Bai Sheng and Bai Hua were the fated inheritors. Why did it fail? It seems because there was a discrepancy because they were not Gu Masters. If so, we need to try again. Fang Yuan didn't hesitate as he activated Tusita flower to spit out a sharp blade. He stretched his forearm and slashed. Blood started flowing rapidly, and he threw his own flesh into the fire, which was now blazing higher than a man's height. Your turn. After doing this, he threw the sharp blade to Bai Ningbing. You sure it will work? Bai Ningbing hesitated for a while before she similarly used the blade to slash at her forearm. However, because of her ice muscles, the blade seemed to be cutting into ice. With no other choice, Bai Ningbing called out Chainsaw Golden Centipede and sawed a piece of flesh. When her flesh landed into the fire immediately turned reddish purple. Good. Success or failure depends on this. We need to pour our primeval essence together. Fang Yuan was overjoyed at this scene. The two poured their primeval essence into the red gem pupils at the same time. The mechanism started slowly closing up. Like a bone beast swallowing the blazing flames. 2 rows of fangs came together, and the jaws closed securely. The flame continued burning from inside, roasting the skull into a shade of scarlet. Bang! The pottery container seemed to have exploded. The whole skull shook. Only after hearing this sound, Fang and Bai let go of their hands. Fang Yuan closely stared at the movement while extending his hand towards Bai Ningbing. He didn't say anything. But Bai Ningbing already knew what Fang Yuan wanted. She snorted, but thinking about the situation, she had no choice other than to give the fleshbone goo to Fang Yuan. She didn't have the ability to instantly refine goo worms, but Fang Yuan could. Fleshbone goo didn't resist even a bit under the aura of spring autumn cicada and was instantly refined. However, although Fang Yuan refined it, he couldn't use it due to his low cultivation. Thus, he again handed it to Bai Ningbing. Bai Ningbing received it and immediately activated it. An orange glow covered the wound on her forearm, and almost instantly, skin and flesh grew out and her injury was completely healed. However, Bai Ningbing's rank 3 peak stage primeval essence was also instantly down by 20%. The disadvantage of fleshbone goo was it required instant consumption of a great amount of primeval essence. If it were Fang Yuan's green copper primeval essence, he wouldn't be able to activate it even if his primeval sea completely dried up. Following, Bai Ningbing healed Fang Yuan. Fang Yuan's face was pale. He didn't have ice muscles to stop his bleeding in a short period, thus he had lost a lot of blood. The injuries on their forearms had healed, but the pain was still as intense as before, and their hearts trembled from the pain, even feeling dizzy. But the two had iron willpower, despite such pain. Their expressions didn't change as they forcibly withstood the intense pain. In a flash, the skull slowly opened up. The fire had already disappeared. There were neither any traces of the pottery container nor the corpses of Bai Sheng and Bai Hua left. 2 goo worms appeared in Fang Yuan's sight. 1 was green and another red. They were tied together like two jade bracelets, and quietly let out warm luster as they hovered in the air. This is the bone-flesh unity goo? Without taking the time to carefully investigate, Fang Yuan took it and instantly refined it, storing it into his aperture. Let's go. He flew down the platform and rushed into the new secret tunnel that had appeared at the end of the hall. Only a short moment after, Bai Clan Gu masters arrived at this hall. Someone refined a Gu here. The remaining aura in the air made the elders' expressions change. Look, there are clothes of the two young masters. Soon, they found children's clothing that had been torn by Fang Yuan on the high platform. Seeing this, an intensely bad feeling struck Bai Clan leader's heart, almost causing her to black out. She didn't dare to even make the connection. Chase them. They can't have gone far. My children are definitely with them. Bai Clan leader shouted. Her two eyes had become bloodshot. Chapter 227. Footless bird, spread your wings and fly. Sprinting, the secret tunnel seemed to continue on forever. But any long journey eventually came to an end. After the first glimmer of light, Fang and Bai's vision gradually expanded. The exit. Bai Ningbing shouted. According to the info from my previous life, this secret tunnel should lead to a cliff on Baigu Mountain. Fang Yuan did not speak. His thoughts rumbled in his mind. He should thank the two dead siblings, Bai Sheng and Bai Hua. Their information attracted Fang Yuan here. And because of their sacrifice, Fang Yuan managed to obtain the coveted flesh-bone unity goo. Suddenly, footsteps could be heard from behind. We've finally caught up. We found those two bastards. Where are you going? Bai Clan Gu masters rushed up imposingly, seething with killing intent. Bai Clan leader was ahead of them all, with the elders behind her. The narrow tunnel turned the Bai Clan group into a long queue. Blitz Gu. Suddenly, a clan elder accelerated, his body moving like a cannon, catching up to Fang Yuan. Bai Ningbing. Fang Yuan shouted. Bai Ningbing gritted her teeth, swinging her hand behind her. Blood Moon Gu. With a crisp sound, a blood blade flew out, hitting the elder and slowing his movement. But immediately, all kinds of lights exploded in the tunnel as large numbers of attacks came towards Fang and Bai. Bai Ningbing, take this. Fang Yuan shouted, lending the canopy Gu to her again. Bai Ningbing activated the canopy Gu, Iron Spike Thorns Gu, as well as the defense of the ice muscles, all three together to resist the attacks. Bai Clan, don't you want to know the location of your two young masters? Fang Yuan shouted loudly. The Bai Clan Gu masters remembered Bai Sheng and Bai Hua were in Fang and Bai's hands. They stopped their attacks. Speak. What did you do to our clan's young masters? If anything happens to them, you will pay dearly. Return my children. Bai Clan leader flew into a rage. She pointed forward with her finger, and a cold light shot out. Frost Fish Gu. This Gu was only the size of a dart and looked like a fish. It drew an arc in the air as it shot forward, homing down towards Fang and Bai. Fang Yuan snorted. He didn't dodge and just let the Frost Fish Gu hit him. Suddenly cold air enveloped his body, and his speed drastically fell. Stealth Scales Gu. With a thought, there were ripples undulating around his body and making him invisible. Don't think so. A clan elder suddenly stretched out his right hand and grabbed towards Fang Yuan. Swoosh. With a soft sound, the Stealth Scales Gu that was hiding in Fang Yuan's aperture suddenly broke into pieces and perished. Fang Yuan's heart sank, activating the jumping grass immediately. There was a numbing sensation on his feet as green grass that looked like springs grew out of his flesh and skin. Fang Yuan used the elasticity of the green grass and jumped forward, his speed increasing drastically. I'll take my leave first. Remember to jump. He left behind this weird sentence. What? Bai Ningbing was confused, but then heard the wind blowing behind her. Her heart jumped when she turned around to look. It was the Bai Clan leader. Her eyes dyed red, looking like an agitated lioness. Her furious aura made even Bai Ningbing's heart shudder. After all, she was a rank 4 Gu master. Bang! Bai Clan leader punched directly. The huge force shattered the canopy Gu's white armor immediately. Bai Ningbing threw up a mouthful of blood as she summoned the Chainsaw Golden Centipede. The Chainsaw Golden Centipede turned into a golden light and coiled around the Bai Clan leader. Using this opportunity, Bai Ningbing sprinted and arrived at the exit. It was a cliff. At this moment, Bai Ningbing suddenly understood what Fang Yuan meant. He wanted her to jump off a cliff. You cannot escape. Bai clan leader shouted from behind. As for the chainsaw golden centipede, it had been torn to pieces using brute strength. Bai Ningbing was struggling to at this height. It was a guaranteed death if she jumped down. But in this circumstance, she had no other choice. She gritted her teeth and jumped. She really jumped. She's dead meat. Some Bai clan Gu masters exclaimed, stopping before the cliff. Bai clan leader looked down and saw Bai Ningbing rapidly falling down. Her veins popped on her forehead as she growled. I want to see them if they are alive, and their corpses if they are dead. I will definitely catch them. Wind roared in Bai Ningbing's ears as she continued to fall. She had never thought there would be a day where she would be forced to jump off a cliff. I'm going to die like this? Although this is exhilarating, I am not satisfied. As death approached, Bai Ningbing's heart was in turmoil. I have not obtained the Yanggu. What a tragedy to die as a female. But once I reach the ground, I will definitely be a pile of smashed meat, and no one will be able to tell my gender anyway. Bai Ningbing was not sure why she was having such a strange thought right before death at this time. The turbulence around her increased as she heard a voice. Bai Ningbing. Bai Ningbing turned around. How could it be anyone else but Fang Yuan? At this time, Fang Yuan was descending as well, but he was stepping on a white-boned bird below his feet. Footless bird. This bird had no flesh or blood, its body made of bones. It had an eagle's head, crane's body, swallow's tail, and 2 pairs of wings, but no legs. Fang Yuan's body was covered in blood and filth. It was evident that he had sustained many injuries back in the secret tunnel earlier. Grab my hand. He squatted on the bird's back, reaching out his hand. Clap. With a clap, 2 hands grasped each other tightly. Fang Yuan exerted more strength and pulled Bai Ningbing onto the back of the bird. However, at this time, there was a rock less than 300 meters below them, as the footless bird descended towards the rock like a shooting star. Careful, we're gonna crash. Bai Ningbing shouted, her heart almost jumping out of her body. The mountain rock increased in size rapidly in her vision. Fang Yuan's eyes shone with brilliance, shouting ferociously, how can my demonic path falter in this tiny little Baigu mountain? Rise for me. Rise, rise, rise. His shout echoed in the valley. Under his manipulation, the footless bird flapped its wings furiously, using all its strength to slow the descent. Cracks started appearing on its 4 bone wings. Fang Yuan's primeval essence in his aperture reduced rapidly, but with the heavenly essence treasure lotus sending out large amounts of primeval essence. Fang Yuan's primeval sea rose and lowered continuously. A group of bone beasts relaxing near the mountain rocks felt the commotion and raised their heads before immediately sprinting in a run. A gray-back ostrich was so scared it dug its sharp head into the white-bone mountain rocks, raising its. But high in the sky, ostriches were like this. When they were scared, they liked to feel false assurance. Moments away from crashing, Bai Ningbing forgot to breathe, and Fang Yuan looked on with furious eyes. Under the intense wind pressure, the white-bone trees on this mountain rock collapsed. But eventually, the footless bird flew past the ostriches but, soaring into the sky at a steep angle. The ostrich's wing was shaved till nothing was left, revealing its round, empty butt. Bai Ningbing started laughing wildly on the bird's back. Having barely survived and relieving the pressure of death, she felt her heart gradually sinking back into place. Exciting, truly exciting. The excitement of life and death was always the most breathtaking. Wasn't such life what she desired and pursued? Footless bird, fly to the blue sky. She was almost on the verge on singing in excitement. Clan leader, they're alive. At the cliff, Bai Clan's Gu masters said with dark expressions, we can't catch up. That is the footless bird, able to fly 10,000 miles in a day. Tai Dao Ku sighed helplessly. Flying Gu worms were rare, and those who could match the footless bird's speed were little to none. Under rank 5, the footless bird was the #1 flying steed. Alas, the heavens are blind. How can such evildoers be allowed to live? Some elderly shouted in anger, pounding on their chests. Bai clan leader's eyes were bloodshot. She gritted her teeth while clenching her fists so tightly that her bones seemed about to burst out. Hearing Bai Ningbing's laughter, she even had the urge to jump down the cliff to pursue them. It was not that Bai clan did not have a flying Gu. Some Gu masters had already displayed their abilities, chasing after Fang and Bai. But looking at their speed, even an idiot would know that it would be impossible for them to catch up to these two. An intense bitterness filled the Bai Clan Gu masters' hearts. They could only watch helplessly even when the criminal was fleeing before their very eyes. No, we definitely cannot let them escape. We cannot. A Gu master shouted in fury. His body suddenly started burning with intense flames. Bai Zhanwan. Bai clan leader's expression changed. Lord Clan Elder. Everyone was stunned. Grandpa. Bai Zhanlai was full of tears. Clan leader, everyone. We cannot let these two scoundrels escape, or where will our Bai clan's dignity lie? The revenge for our two young masters is of utmost importance. After I am gone, please take care of my grandson. This lad's temperament is as tough as mine. He started losing his voice at the end. His entire flesh, skin, and bones turned into fire, and his voice naturally disappeared along with them. Even his pupils transformed into a dark purple color. He had turned into a human-shaped fire. Fire burned and raised the surrounding temperature, and everyone started retreating back while a sad song seemed to sound in the mountain. Human Torch Gu. A rank 4 Gu, which once used, immolated the entire body, turning it into fire until his life force was depleted. This by Zhan when Elder chose to sacrifice his life to gain this immense power. Good. Our clan shall stand here and witness Elder's contribution. Bai clan leader was moved, but Bai Zhanwen could no longer hear them. As his life burnt, he felt an unprecedented power flowing in his body, completely free and unbound. The purple-black pupil gazed at the surrounding people and looked at his grandson one last time. Before flying into the sky, the human torch rapidly approached the footless bird. Good. Everyone shouted in excitement. Bai clan leader's steel-like cold expression showed some agitation too. A strong foe. Bai Ningbing's expression was grim. She lacked experience in aerial combat. She might fall and be smashed to bits if she was careless. Howl. The human torch growled, intense killing intent flickering in his dark purple pupils. Sparks flashed as the human torch's speed increased again, pouncing towards Fang Yuan like lightning. Hold on tight. Fang Yuan was concentrating the entire time in maneuvering the footless bird. Footless bird raised its speed and pulled away, causing the human torch to pounce on empty air. Waves of sighing and pity could be heard from the cliff. But quickly, the human torch pounced up again. Footless bird swerved again and narrowly dodged. Bai Ningbing was almost thrown off and quickly grabbed into a bone that was jutting out. Howl. The human torch came attacking again. Fang Yuan laughed coldly. The footless bird suddenly contracted its wings, dropping to the ground. The human torch followed closely. Its speed surpassed the footless bird and was getting closer. Footless bird suddenly spread its four wings, stopping its downfall and flying in the reverse direction. Boom. The human torch's flying was completely dependent on the propulsion of the flames. He had no wings to help him quickly change his direction, and came crashing down onto the mountain rocks. At once, over 6 kilometers square of land burst into flames, killing all bone beasts and large numbers of bone trees in its range. In the sea of fire, a lump of fire gathered into a human shape again, flying away and chasing Fang and by relentlessly. However, the use of Gu worms also depended on their users. Gu masters cultivation aspects of nurture, use and refine. Use was one. Not anyone could simply take out a Gu and display its full ability. The methods and techniques involved were very profound. Human torch Gu was a suicidal technique, and naturally, it would be Bai Zhanlai's first time using it. But Fang Yuan, although this was his first time riding the footless bird in this life, he had used an uncountable number of flying Gu worms in his previous life. His experience was many times of Bai Zhanlai, almost to the point of being an instinct ingrained upon his soul. The cliff. Bai clan members were observing the battle situation. Their expressions slowly changed from hopeful and anticipation to anger. Anyone could tell now that the footless bird was playing around with Elder Bai Zhan. 1. The human torch's growling, which originally sounded so awe-inspiring and full of authority, now sounded like he was helplessly venting in a sorrowful state. Damn it! Someone clenched his fist in frustration. How can this happen? Tai Dao Ku was also stunned by Fang Yuan's skill, sighing as he knew there was nothing he could do anymore. Fang Zheng, I want you to die. Bai Zhanlai shouted, the seed of hatred sowing deep in his heart. elder Baijian when sacrifice was becoming a joke, being toyed around by Fang Yuan. It was an ironic slap across by Clan's face. Gradually, everyone's anger turned into disappointment and despair. We can't catch them anymore. Can we do nothing other than to look at this? Gu Yu Fangzheng. Many people spoke this name, gritting their teeth. Footless bird flew casually in the air, dodging the human torch yet again and again. Young man, your bird maneuvering techniques are superb, huh? Bai Ningbing laughed heartily, letting her guard down. Fang Yuan's expression froze. Careful. Boom! An intense explosion occurred. Bai Zhanwen knew he could not catch up to Fang and Bai. Thus he chose to self-detonate. The explosion and flames engulfed the footless bird. Thankfully, the footless bird was made of white bones. Even its wings were like pieces of thin bone pieces. The fire didn't cause much damage. The true danger was the impact caused by the explosion. Footless bird's body was full of cracks, and it lost its balance, plummeting to the ground. After descending for a distance, under Fang Yuan's manipulation, it regained its balance and flew far away. Fang Yuan! Bai Ningbing screamed. Earlier, Fang Yuan lent her the canopy goo. She had the goo worm to protect her, but Fang Yuan did not. When the explosion occurred, Fang Yuan had no time to activate a defensive goo. When the footless bird rushed out of the flame, Fang Yuan's body was burning in the fire. The intense winds caused the fire to burn even more greatly. Even the earth-hearing eargrass in his right ear was burnt. But his expression was cold like steel, like he was not suffering any injuries at all. After Footless Bird regained its stability, Fang Yuan took out Tusita flower and poured the milk spring over his head. The fire was extinguished, but his skin was mostly burnt and his face disfigured. He looked extremely tragic. Bai Ningbing tried to speak, but could not say anything. Fang Yuan, however, smirked and laughed. I like the Footless Bird, do you know why? He smiled, but the sight was horrifying. Why? Because it has no legs, only wings, thus it has no choice but to fly. When it lands, that signifies its destruction. Betting it all in one chance, fly or die. Bai Ningbing's blue pupils dilated, shining with brilliance. The winds blew on her face, causing her silver hair to flutter. Bai Ningbing's lips also curled up. Then let us fly up into the sky. Footless Bird flew into the sky, becoming a dot in the horizon before eventually vanishing on the cliff. Bai clan members watched until their eyes seemed to penetrate the sky, but none spoke today. An eerie silence engulfed everyone. The world was so vast, the eerie blue sky, the snow-like white Baigu mountain, the sunlight shining down, Footless Bird, Fang, and Bai's silhouettes. This scene was deeply engraved into everyone's hearts. Fury grew in their hearts, as hatred germinated in their hearts. Puff! Bai clan leader vomited a mouthful of fresh blood and fell down on her back, fainting. Clan leader! Lord clan leader! Quick, healing goo masters, save the clan leader. Panic ensued on the cliff. Author's note. What is demonic path? A kind of path that has its own ideology and beliefs. Towards what a demonic path is, everyone has their unique understanding towards it. But to me, the Footless Bird embodied a kind of demonic spirit. Demonic path is cruel, not only to others, but more towards oneself. Thus, it is not well liked by the masses. Chapter 228. Dark Leopard Dies for Love. The setting sun was dyed like blood as the clouds on the west resembled burning flames. Under the setting sun, the Footless Bird started slowly dropping down after having flown for the majority of the day. IT had made a series of extreme diving and rising actions. While suffering from the explosion of the Human Torch, its body was filled with cracks and could no longer continue to fly. Bam! Under Fang Yuan's meticulous control, the Footless Bird finally fell into a forest. Smoke and dust flew everywhere and groups of beasts escaped in a panic. Where is this? Bai Ningbing jumped off from the bird and surveyed her surroundings. The trees were short and thick, but had a lot of lush leaves, unlike the sparse amount in the bone trees of Baigu Mountain. The trees in this forest were like a canopy blocking the sunlight, and the leaves were all purple, light purple, dark purple, reddish purple, violet. The evening wind blew over. If one looked into the distance, all they would see was a sea of purple. A purple forest, We have been moving north all along, and according to our course, this should be near Ziyu Mountain. Fang Yuan guessed. His countenance was covered with worry. Ziyu Mountain is safe in daytime, but is extremely dangerous in night. It is getting dark. We need to quickly leave and find a safe place to stay. Okay. Bai Ningbing nodded. After over 2 hours, they found a cave luckily. The cave's original owner had been a pouched bear. This species of bear possessed a natural marsupial pouch on their stomach, just like kangaroo. Dry wood burnt with crackling sounds. The bonfire quietly blazed. The meat stew in the iron pot over the rack was already boiling, giving off a dense aroma. The fat, tender bear paws were already roasted. Besides these, there were also many delicacies, from Bai clan, stored in tusita flour. The two quickly began devouring the food, and their strained mood began to relax. Bai Ningbing suddenly laughed, her dark blue eyes looking at Fang Yuan. Look, this is retribution. You burned that pair of brother and sister to death, and now, you yourself are burned to this state. The light of the fire shone upon Fang Yuan's face. The severe wounds on his face made him look horrifying and ugly. If a timid girl saw his appearance, they would probably scream in fear right then and there. Fang Yuan, however, laughed, not minding the comment. He was even inwardly happy. Fortunately, we have meat bone goo. It won't be difficult to recover your original appearance. You just need to cut off the burned skin and flesh. Then we can use the meat bone goo to grow them anew. But you are only a rank 1 and can't use the meat bone goo. Come, beg me. Maybe my kind and magnanimous heart will feel pity for you and heal you. Bai Ningbing wouldn't let go of any chance to snide at Fang Yuan. Fang Yuan made a motion of raising his eyebrows, despite his eyebrows already being burned off. Why would I want to heal it? Isn't this situation quite good? He laughed. We killed off the 2 young masters of Bai clan and also played the Bai clan leader and the elder. Do you think they will let us go? This injury saves me the effort to change my appearance. Earth-hearing eargrass was destroyed. Fang Yuan's right ear was shattered. The injuries to cartilage in his ear wasn't something the meat bone goo could heal. But even if he could heal it, he would rather have 1 ear less to change his appearance that in past. There was a demonic figure, Bai Shanzi, who was captured and put into a prison. He feigned becoming mad, smearing his own stool onto his body, even cutting off his 5th limb, and became a eunuch. His enemies finally believed he had gone crazy and thus loosened their vigilance, giving him a chance to flee. Later on, he returned to take revenge and massacred the whole family of his enemies, including the old and the young. There was a great figure of the righteous path, Empress Wu Ji. When she was young, her own elder sister had seized her rights to the throne. She could only hide this grievance inside her. Her elder sister was jealous of her beauty, and thus, to avoid letting her make things difficult, Empress Wu Ji cut off the bridge of her nose, disfiguring herself, but gained the space to survive and grow. After over 10 years, she overthrew her elder sister's regime and re-established her authority. She then ordered her elder sister's 5 sensory organs to be cut off, making her live in a state where she couldn't choose to live or die. Throughout the history, all the great figures were good at biding their time and not being attached to fleshly appearance, and no matter if it were the righteous path or the demonic, regardless of men or women, they were all like this. After Empress Wu Ji took the control, she didn't heal her nose even though she had the healing means, keeping this as a warning to herself. The Wu clan became the top clan of the southern border, suppressing Tai clan, Shan clan, Fei clan. Its dominance couldn't be challenged. Those who indulged in fleshly appearance were mostly superficial, and it would be difficult for them to succeed. Regardless of whether it was this world or Earth, both attested to this point. King Yu of Zhou, just for a smile from his beloved concubine Bao Si, lighted the warning beacons to trick the vassal states. What was the outcome? People lost their trust in him, and he was killed by the barbarians. Lu Bu for Diaochan, King Wu for Shishir. Xiang Yu the Conqueror took consort Yu when he went on military campaigns. What was the outcome of these people? By contrast, Cao Cao was short. Sun Bin was handicapped. Sima Qian was castrated. Everyone loves beauty. However, achievements were not in the least relevant to fleshly beauty. Only a temperament which could firmly let go was the foundation to a great success. Actually, it is you who is too dazzling. With your blue eyes and silver hair, you should change it. Fang Yuan said as he looked all over Bai Ningbing. Bai Ningbing coldly snorted and didn't reply. Fang Yuan continued. The footless bird was damaged, but we have only flown over few thousands of miles. Although we are quite far away from Bai clan, they will definitely come to capture us for the things we have done. We are in a dangerous situation. If they spread wanted posters, our days will become even more difficult. Bai Ningbing considered the idea with a frown, before agreeing. All right, I am also tired of this outfit. Changing into a new appearance might be a brilliant experience. Next, the two started to calculate their losses and gains. There were losses: earth-hearing eargrass, chainsaw golden centipede, carapace goo, iron thistles, stealth scales goo, footless bird, were all destroyed in the pursuit. However, to Fang Yuan, being alive was the most important. Only by being alive could there be possibilities and hope. This was the foundation to everything. To continue living, even if he had to give up spring-autumn cicada. So what? In a word, being able to let go was the character of a great man. As for gains, there were large numbers of bone spear goo and spiral bone spear goo in Fang Yuan's aperture. They had also obtained rank 3 flying bone shield, jade bone goo, iron bone goo, the healing type meat bone goo, and several bone books recording all kinds of recipes. Besides these, they had also gained clearing heat goo from the Bai clan. Of course, the most significant was still the bone flesh unity goo, which they had successfully refined at such a dangerous moment. Compared to the gains, their losses weren't that serious. This was a complete inheritance, after all. The flower wine monk might be a rank 5 expert, a cut above the rank 4 gray bone scholar, but Fang Yuan's gains from the flower wine inheritance loses out to this Bai Gu inheritance. The reason was Bai Gu inheritance had been carefully planned out for a long time by gray bone scholar, whereas flower wine inheritance was completed in haste and hurried. In fact, Fang Yuan only walked through the main path of the Bai Gu inheritance. There were many other side branches, and moreover, there were many steel teeth locks that weren't knocked open in the flesh sack secret chamber. These things would all serve the Bai clan. They controlled this place, and so long as they spent some time and energy, they could definitely devour the whole inheritance. But it doesn't matter. I have taken all the goo worms in my list. As long as this bone-flesh unity goo displays its effects, it will far surpass the others. It is just that the earth-hearing eargrass has been destroyed, which is a bit troublesome. Fang Yuan's philosophy was only those things that are practical can be valuable. They had lost the chainsaw golden centipede, but the spiral bone spear goo could qualify to replace it. Iron thistles and carapace goo were gone, but they still had canopy goo and flying bone shield. However, with the loss of earth-hearing eargrass, they now had a hole in the investigative aspect. They had lacked in the healing and movement aspects before, but now these two aspects were more or less filled, whereas a gap appeared in the investigative aspect. In life, things often do not go your way. The nighttime in the Ziyu mountain was much livelier than daytime. Fang Yuan and Bai Ningbing took turns to keep watch. Both didn't get proper sleep. Occasionally, roars and sounds of battles of the wild beasts came from outside the cave. Especially at the crack of dawn, an intense battle occurred near the cave, waking up the soundly sleeping Fang Yuan. This was a fight between 2,000 beast kings. 2-winged black feather python had provoked a dark leopard. The two exchanged killing moves back and forth. Their movements were very noisy, and their momentum astonishing. Dark leopard was a ferocious beast specific to the Ziyu mountain. They had purple spots on their skin. Their bodies were powerful, and they were extremely fast. They would often leave behind ethereal afterimages when they moved through the forest. Their movements were quiet, and their prey usually ended up in their stomachs without even being able to react. Fang and Bai were on the edge. They could even say they were trapped in the cave, unable to escape. As time passed, the dark leopard gradually became outmatched, getting into a corner. This was a pregnant female leopard. Dark leopard always came in male and female pairs. The female leopard had been pregnant, and the male leopard had gone out to hunt. Who would have thought the black feathered python would attack during this GAP'd? In the end, the female leopard died by black feathered python's constriction. However, before the black feathered python could escape, the returning male leopard saw it. Then, after another life and death battle, the male leopard killed the killer, but it was welcomed by the female leopard's cold corpse. dawn came. The first rays of light shone upon the dark leopard's beautiful fur. However, the female leopard was no more. The male leopard paced back and forth around the female leopard's side and let out a mournful whimper. They were so near, yet so far, separated by life and death. Why is it not leaving? Bai Ning Bing grumbled. Relax. The male and the female dark leopards are of one heart. If one dies, the other will not continue to live alone. Fang Yuan sighed. I will go back to sleep. He returned to the depths of the cave to sleep again, while Bai Ning Bing remained behind at the cave entrance to keep watch. The male leopard paced back and forth before lying down. It stuck out its tongue and started licking the female leopard's wounds. The wounds on the female leopard had turned pitch black due to the black feather python's poison. The male leopard lived all its life here. It could distinguish this poison with only a sniff. However, it no longer cared now to eye in the end. Its resplendent eyes started dimming and slowly closed. By the time it was noon, it had passed away. It was quietly lying together with the female leopard. Their beautiful fur made them look like delicate artworks. Having personally seen this whole course of events, Bai Ning Bing couldn't help letting out a deep sigh. Not long after, Fang Yuan woke up and walked out full of vigor. He saw Bai Ning Bing resting against the cave wall, staring blankly at the corpses of the two dark leopards. How is the harvest? Fang Yuan asked. Bai Ning Bing shrugged and spoke with a waning interest. The goo worms that could fly have all flown away. I don't have any means to capture goo. Besides, didn't you also see last night's battle? Those goo worms died or are injured. The remaining aren't something we need. Haha, if it were not for that, why would someone like you go back to sleep? Fang Yuan laughed. Although they are 2,000 beast kings, the goo worms on them aren't anything great. But that doesn't necessarily mean there are no harvests, hee. Saying so, Fang Yuan walked towards the dark leopard's corpses. Chapter 229. Resting and Recovering at the Hamlet. Bai Ning Bing couldn't help but become curious when she saw Fang Yuan walking towards the dark leopard's corpses. She saw him squatting down and feeling around the ears of the dark leopards. After a while, Fang Yuan took out 2 exquisite purple leaves from the male leopard's left ear and the female leopard's right ear. This was breath concealment goo. Rank 3 grass goo. Goo masters could use it to conceal their aura and cultivation level. To some degree, it was a camouflage ability. Almost all the dark leopards had a breath concealment goo in the ears. However, the dark leopards moved in pairs and were at least 1,000 beast king level. They were experts in sneak attacks and were extremely agile. Capturing them was a very troublesome and dangerous endeavor. Moreover, the dark leopards were specific to Ziyu Mountain. Thus, the knowledge of there being breath concealment goo in dark leopards' ears wasn't widely known. In Fang Yuan's 150th year in his previous life, there emerged a righteous path figure nicknamed Hunting King, Sun Gone. He was the first to wantonly hunt the dark leopards for their breath concealment goo, and made a fortune by selling them to the market. After him, countless goo masters rushed to Ziyu Mountain to make a fortune. Like this, in only few years, the dark leopards were all annihilated. Right now, however, the Ziyu Mountain was still a secluded area. In this place, daytime was safe whereas the nighttime was extremely dangerous. There were no clans here, but there was an embryonic form of a clan, a hamlet. Fang Yuan didn't have the earth-hearing eargrass to scout, but fortunately they obtained 2 breath concealment goo. Fang and Bai relied on this goo to avoid many dangers. They were not going to go up the Ziyu Mountain. Their current strength was enough to move across the ordinary forests, but not enough to go deep into the famous mountains and great rivers. Even Bai clan would have to pay a great price to explore these areas, let alone the current Fang and Bai. They went around the Ziyu Mountain and moved forward, and after 2 days, they discovered a mountain path. It was a man-made path, and was much safer than the forests. Of course, if one's luck was bad, they might come across dangerous situations. Fang and Bai moved along the mountain path, until one evening, they saw a thin curl of smoke. The two glanced at each other before hastening their steps. They saw a hamlet lying in a mountain basin. The hamlet was surrounded by short stone walls, with guards standing on several points. It was evening now, and the farmers were returning in groups, walking to the hamlet with hoes and other farm tools on them. However, these were all mortals and were nothing to worry about. Let's go. Fang Yuan walked towards the hamlet. Just like this. Bai Ning Bing was somewhat surprised. Their appearance quickly attracted the curiosity and suspicious glances of the villagers. Most of the villages in this world weren't too welcoming to foreigners. The clan villagers were even more so. They would set up tight defense around the whole village, for fear that spies and robbers would infiltrate the village. May I ask the two distinguished guests if your respected Lord Gu masters? Before Fang and Bai even reached the entrance, two guards who looked alike approached them. Bai Ningbing didn't speak. According to their original agreement, Fang Yuan would take charge of all the communications. Fang Yuan shook his head. Hello, brothers. We are both mortals. The two guards seemed to heave a sigh of relief when they heard this, their faces clearly loosening up. The younger juvenile guard disdainfully sized up Fang Yuan's body, before speaking with some disgust. I'll say, how could such a ugly person possibly be one of those Lord Gu masters who possess divine powers? Fang Yuan's whole body was burned and he had one ear less. Such an ugly appearance birthed revulsion in people. Bai Ningbing also changed her normal attire. She cut off her long silver hair short and also dyed it black. Her body that was white as snow due to ice muscles was now blackened. Only the color of her eyes couldn't be covered, though she wore a straw hat and covered half her face. As the two stood together, they remarkably looked like mortal villagers. Little brother, watch what you say. The senior guard reprimanded the junior guard, then vigilantly looked at Fang and Bai. Where are you from, and what are you doing here? We are from a hamlet across the mountain. We were taking a handcart filled with herbs and salted meat, thinking to sell them, but we bumped into a tiger on our way. Whoa, that really scared me to death. We ran crazily all the way, and only then could we save ourselves. We don't dare to go back for the moment, so we came to your hamlet and hope to spend the night here. We will immediately leave tomorrow. Fang Yuan spoke off the top of his head. The vigilance in the guard's gaze lessened. Fang Yuan said, Brother, no need to scold your little brother. I got this injuries from a fire. That day, our house was on fire, and while trying to salvage the rice, I was burned to this state. Everyone is suffering nowadays. The senior guard heaved a sigh. You can enter the hamlet, and if you don't find anyone willing to offer you shelter, you need to make do by spending the night in the corner of the walls. After finishing saying the instructions, the guards opened the way. After Fang and Bai entered the hamlet, the senior guard instructed his brother, Go tell the village head that two outsiders are here. He as an elder has rich experience. Ask him to keep a lookout. Brother, you are too cautious. How could these two be Gu masters? Besides, why would Gu masters try to deceive us mortals? To have fun. If I tell you to go, then just go. Making me run errands again, the young guard grumbled but still left in the end. The scene inside the hamlet was peaceful. The air was filled with the aroma of food. After a day of hard work, families gathered around the dinner table and talked happily. Bai Ningbing involuntarily felt relaxed in such an environment. The reason for her disguise was because they didn't want to leave behind any traces which could make it convenient for the Bai clan to track them. Another reason was because of Fang Yuan's cautious nature. By hiding themselves in an unfamiliar environment, they could react to any abnormalities. It was easy to find a house to take shelter in. Just give the villagers a primeval stone fragment, and they would be more than happy to vacate a house. However, doing this would not be in accordance with their current identities. Fang Yuan had a better method. He walked around the hamlet. Before stopping in front of a worn-out house, there was only an elderly woman in this household. She had a grandson, but he was killed by a wolf when out playing. The old lady was drawing water from a well in front of her house. The action seemed to take a lot out of her. Auntie, let me help you. Fang Yuan put on a silly grin and eagerly ran towards the old lady. The old lady was shocked when she saw Fang Yuan's appearance. However, Fang Yuan acted passionately with a silly grin on his face, and after quickly pulling up several buckets of water, the old lady's vigilance disappeared. Young man, you are an outsider? The old lady smiled, opened her mouth which had a few missing teeth. Yes, we were hoping to stay over for the night in your house. Auntie, I can do your work, may we? Fang Yuan foolishly said. Okay. The old lady happily agreed. Although the villagers would help each other financially in normal times, she still needed labor force like this. Bai Ningbing watched this scene speechlessly. This Fang Yuan could really act. After fetching the water, it was chopping the firewoods. Fang Yuan also cooked the meal. The old lady repeatedly praised him for his swift and skilled movements. Auntie, let me help you fetch some more water. We will talk after I fill the water vat. After the dinner, Fang Yuan again went to fetch water on his own accord. The old lady kept on saying no need, but Fang Yuan insisted on doing so. After the water vat was filled, the old lady talked with tears in her eyes. Young man, you are really such a bitter life like this old lady. Evidently, Fang Yuan had fabricated a miserable tale during the dinner, which left a deep impression on the simple old lady. Lanterns were a luxury to ordinary people, thus the house was dark in the night. The only light came through the window from the moon. The house had two simple and crude beds. Bai Ningbing was lying on the floor but was very satisfied. The exhaustion accumulated from days of walking was now slowly dissipating. Fang Yuan laid cross-legged on the bed. His mind was in his aperture, observing the bone-flesh unity goo. He had not used this pair of goo even once since he got it. After all, he had refined it after tempering the recipe. And with Fang Yuan's cautious nature, he naturally needed to properly study it before using it. Suddenly, Fang Yuan opened his eyes. A bright light flashed past them. There isn't any problem. Bone-flesh unity goo can be used. After saying so, he summoned the pair of jade bracelet-shaped goo. These two jade bracelets, one was green as grass whereas the other was red as blood. They were both tied together and couldn't be separated. Fang Yuan had already refined them before. However, to bring out their magical effects, he needed to give up one of them and let Bai Ningbing refine it. Bai Ningbing was sitting in a cross-legged position as she received the goo, but he wasn't in a hurry to refine it and instead looked at Fang Yuan. "What do you plan on doing next?" Fang Yuan chuckled. "And here I was thinking you wouldn't ask." Despite it being dark, Bai Ningbing could sense Fang Yuan smiling at this moment. She just snorted and didn't speak. Fang Yuan didn't plan to conceal his plans from her. "Our next destination is Shangliang Mountain." Shangliang Mountain? Shang Clan? Bai Ningbing's brows slightly furrowed. Shang Clan was one of the top forces of the southern border, not weaker to Tai Clan and Fei Clan. Only the Wu Clan was above it. Shang Clan was famed for their businesses in southern border, and even the people outside the southern border, as long as they had some experience, knew that the Shang Clan of the southern border was the center for businesses and trading. Shang Clan City was so flourishing that there were opportunities for primeval stones everywhere. When Bai Ningbing still had northern dark eye soul physique, she had looked forward to visiting the Shang Clan City. Now, however, she was hesitating. With the crimes we have committed against the Bai clan, we might already be wanted by all the righteous path figures. Wouldn't we just be heading straight into a trap by going to Shang Clan City? Fang Yuan smiled. If there are only two places in the whole southern border that could accept us, that Shang Clan City would definitely be one of them. Shang Clan might be one of the leaders of the righteous paths, but the Shang Clan City is a place with complete freedom, and also a place where most of the demonic path figures dispose of their goods. If not for that, how could Shang Clan be the richest clan in the southern border? Even Wu Clan is far inferior to them in this aspect. Bai Ningbing pondered for a while when she heard this. The rumors said that you could buy anything in Shang Clan City. Is this really true? Fang Yuan shook his head. The things in the rumors are all talking of the low-level goods. There are too many things in this world that has a lot of demand but no supply. For example, a certain Yanggu? Haha. Chapter 230, Dual Cultivation. In the dark room, Bai Ningbing let out an annoyed snort. Fang Yuan changed the subject. At this stage, Shang Clan City is the most suitable place for us. There are many stores there from where we can buy the goo worms suitable for us. Although the goo worms we have now are excellent, they don't match with each other. Only with goo worms that can complement each other can we exhibit stronger fighting prowess and even fight higher ranks. Bai Ningbing was in complete agreement. All excellent goo master would have a set of complementing goo worms. For instance, when Bai Ningbing possessed northern dark ice soul physique, the goo worms she had were ice blade goo, icicle goo, water shield goo, bluebird ice coffin goo, ice muscles goo, frost demon goo. They all belonged to ice and water series, and easily complemented each other when mutually paired and used. Now, however, Fang and Bai only possessed an assortment of goo worms. If they were to complete a set of complementing goo worms, their fighting prowess would at least double. Fortunately, Fang Yuan had stored large numbers of bone spear goo and spiral bone spear goo. All these could be sold in Shang Clan City. Even if there were none of these goo, Fang Yuan had Heavenly Essence Treasure Lotus and could use it to produce primeval stones. The first objective in going to Shang Clan City was to lay low. The second objective was to purchase and exchange goo worms. Fang Yuan's third objective, however, wasn't convenient to tell to Bai Ningbing. This involved rock gambling. At a dark corner of a certain rock gambling site, there was a rock hiding a legendary rainbow-colored goo. The goo worms in Fang Yuan's possession were as high as rank 6 Spring Autumn Cicada, Heavenly Essence Treasure Lotus, which was involved with a rank 9 Immortal Venerable, Blood Skull goo, which could change one's aptitude, and also Bone Flesh Unity goo. Leaving aside the bone flesh, Unity Goo, Blood Skull Goo had already lost its worth because there was almost no blood relative left of Fang Yuan now. Heavenly Essence Treasure Lotus might have excellent results, but it didn't have any advancement prospects since Fang Yuan didn't have its fusion recipe. The higher his cultivation becomes, the lesser the help it would provide. Let's not even talk about Spring Autumn Cicada. Right now, it is still hibernating. If one said to use it, it would be full of danger, but if one does not use it, once it recovered, it would blow up the aperture. It was a ticking time bomb. Spring Autumn Cicada, Heavenly Essence Treasure Lotus, Blood Skull Goo, and Bone Flesh Unity Goo were the most valuable goo in Fang Yuan's possession. In addition, these four all had a common point. They were all involved in assisting with cultivation. How big of a help they were to Fang Yuan? Big, very big. However, their use in battles weren't that obvious. That goo in the Shang Clan city was different in that it was a trump card for battle. With it, and some other goo worms to complement it, Fang Yuan could only then be considered to have rebirthed. He would have some confidence in being unrivaled among those at the same rank. Recovering some of the bearings of his previous life is one of the big shots of the demonic path. It's a long journey to Shang Clan City. No need to think about this now. You should first refine the Bone Flesh Unity Goo. Fang Yuan stopped this topic. Bai Ningbing felt slightly at ease after knowing Fang Yuan's plan. Having been in contact with Fang Yuan for so long, she was becoming more and more aware of how treacherous and crafty Fang Yuan was, especially his performance today. Such simplicity and honesty even nearly fooled her. Not long ago, she had witnessed how Fang Yuan had refined the Bone Flesh Unity Goo, and after connecting all of his behavior, she was beginning to feel a chill in her heart. She reminded herself to be careful and learn from the mistake of that miserable clan leader. If she doesn't have some vigilance against Fang Yuan, who knows, one day she might be sold by Fang Yuan while still counting the money for him. She shook her head to put her mood in check and began to refine the Bone Flesh Unity Goo. This pair of goo had strange shapes with one green and another red. Bai Ningbing chose the red one and began pouring her primeval essence into it. This Bone Flesh Unity Goo had already been refined by Fang Yuan at the very beginning. Now, Fang Yuan removed his imprint from the goo and cooperated with Bai Ningbing. Bai Ningbing didn't take a lot of time to refine it. The moment she finished refining the goo, there was a change in Bone Flesh Unity Goo. This pair of linked jade bracelets suddenly completely dissipated in the air. And almost instantly, there appeared circular marks on Fang Yuan's and Bai Ningbing's wrists. What was different was, the mark that appeared on Fang Yuan's left wrist was green, whereas it appeared on Bai Ningbing's right wrist and was red. A mysterious connection emerged from both Fang and Bai's hearts. This connection allowed Fang Yuan to sense Bai Ningbing, and Bai Ningbing similarly could sense Fang Yuan, as if their blood and flesh were linked and couldn't be divided. This feeling wasn't good, and it made Bai Ningbing feel nauseous as if she had swallowed a housefly. Fang Yuan's brows also tightly furrowed. This hadn't been mentioned in the scroll left behind by Grey Bone Scholar. Fang Yuan thought about it before being relieved. The Grey Bone Scholar had researched this only in theory and never put it into practice. Not knowing this is very normal. This feeling was only a minor detail. The important thing was the next stage. The two endured the odd feeling and sat cross-legged facing each other on the bed. Starting their dual cultivation, they both stretched out their hands, the four palms touching each other. To be on the safe side, the weaker cultivation Fang Yuan experimented it. He took out a portion of his green copper primeval essence and cautiously poured it into Bai Ningbing's aperture. The green and red circular marks suddenly let out bright radiance. The foreign primeval essence, when transferred to Bai Ningbing's aperture, immediately changed to Bai Ningbing's aura. It really worked. Bai Ningbing softly exclaimed in delight. I clearly transferred 10% of my green copper primeval essence, but you only received 3/5 of it. 2/5 of it was lost in conversion. Fang Yuan's observation was even more detailed. Bai Ningbing wasn't surprised, though. What's hard to understand? Didn't the scroll say it? This Bone Flesh Unity Goo can be divided into 5 types of quality depending on how deep the relation between the two refiners is. From low to high, it is divided into fratricidal, friendly relation, indissoluble relation, familial relation, bloodkin relation. She analyzed and continued. If that pair of brother and sister became Goo Masters and refined the Blood-Flesh Unity Goo by themselves, with how deep the relation was between them, I estimate they would obtain the highest quality bloodkin relation. If we had refined it by ourselves, it would definitely be the worst quality fratricidal, considering our relation. These two neutralized each other, and we have thus obtained the mid-quality, indissoluble relation. The bone-flesh unity goo referred to a series goo. Just like how in the boar goo, there were black boar goo, white boar goo, pink boar goo, and so on. According to what the scroll mentioned, bone-flesh unity goo contained 5 types of goo worms. The worst quality was the fratricidal goo, which converted 10% primeval essence into 1/5 of it. Above it was friendly relation goo, which converted 10% of primeval essence into 2/5 of it. Indissoluble relation goo could transfer 3/5. Familial relation goo could transfer 4/5. And the top blood kin relation goo could transfer 100% of the primeval essence without any loss in conversion. By relying on his previous life's experience, Fang Yuan had tampered with the recipe at the last moment, obtaining the rank 3 indissoluble relation goo, which could be considered a pretty good luck. Researching refinement recipe was not easy. It required continuous deductions and experiments along with many goo worms. Fang Yuan was able to succeed with his tampering. One factor was due to the insight from his experience, and another factor was luck. However, he had never liked to rely on luck. This didn't mean he was born a jinx or his luck was bad all the time. Fang Yuan's luck was the same as ordinary people, sometimes good, sometimes bad. Why he didn't like it was because it was a factor which he couldn't control. He was a person who strongly desired being in control. He liked to control the situation, control others, and naturally control himself. That's it. Your turn now. Fang Yuan said. On the whole, he was satisfied getting the indissoluble goo. Bai Ningbing transferred 10% of her snow-silver primeval essence into Fang Yuan's aperture. What happened next was shocking. Just before, when Fang Yuan transferred his dark green primeval essence into Bai Ningbing's aperture, it formed into a green water which was swallowed by the snow-silver primeval sea in just a while, her primeval sea increasing by a bit. Now, when she transferred 10% primeval essence into Fang Yuan's aperture, before her primeval essence had yet to land into his primeval sea, his aperture started shaking. Fang Yuan immediately shouted to stop. This was not a problem in bone-flesh unity goo, but rather was the problem of his cultivation. He was only at upper stage of rank 1 goo master and had stored hundreds of bone spear goo, and now that he was receiving the snow-silver primeval essence, the whole burden was too much to handle for his aperture. Bai Ningbing hesitated. If she continued to transfer the primeval essence now, she might be able to break Fang Yuan's aperture. But even if she broke his aperture, Yang Gu could still be destroyed with one thought from Fang Yuan. She thought for a moment before finally deciding to withdraw her primeval essence. Originally, 10% of silver snow primeval essence was transferred to Fang Yuan's aperture, which should have been converted into 3/5. Now after Bai Ningbing withdrew her primeval essence, only about 1/5 of the converted primeval essence remained. What made Bai Ningbing inwardly sigh was the ability of this bone-flesh unity goo. Fang Yuan transferred all the bone spear goo to Bai Ningbing's aperture, and then accepted the snow-silver primeval essence. When this portion of snow primeval essence was in Bai Ningbing's body, it had her aura. Now that it had been transferred into Fang Yuan's aperture, it suddenly shrunk and changed to Fang Yuan's aura. The converted snow-silver primeval essence sank towards the bottom of Fang Yuan's aperture, and his green-copper primeval essence could only helplessly float above it. The two existed peacefully, as if this portion of snow-silver primeval essence was birthed by Fang Yuan's aperture. If it was foreign primeval essence that came this close in contact, it would immediately explode and cause damage to the aperture. Hence, the normal primeval essence imparting was like walking on a steel rope, very dangerous and exhausting. Fang Yuan tried moving this portion of the white-silver primeval essence to rush at the aperture walls. Gu masters were divided into 9 ranks of great realms. Each great realms were further divided into 4 small realms: initial stage, middle stage, upper stage, and peak stage. Initial stage was light membrane aperture walls. The light was thin and flickering. Middle stage was water membrane aperture walls. The light flowed freely. Upper stage was stone membrane aperture walls. The light was condensed to solid state. Peak stage was crystal membrane aperture walls with ethereal and pure radiance. Fang Yuan was now a rank 1 upper stage. His aperture walls were of stone membrane. However, with one wave of impact from the snow-silver primeval essence, this stone membrane wall actually started shaking violently.